here today with Coach Thompson and Michael Herschel, who were both the coach and captain on the 2009 basketball state championship team here at Bishop McGuinness. And today we're going to be interviewing them about their experiences and memories from this 2009 season. So before we get to the actual state championship game and the run, I just wanted to ask you about the season before and the expectations going into the state championship season.
In the 07-08 season, we only had one senior on that team, and the guy that was the senior on that team didn't play a whole lot. He was 8th, 9th guy on the team. So we returned the core of our team from the previous year for the 08-09 season. So we felt like we were a talented team, that we were going to have a chance to be pretty good. And the team was hungry from losing in the second round of the playoffs the year before. We had some success in the spring and summer playing on the AAU circuit, and we had a sense of confidence that we were going to be good when that group of guys were all seniors. So a lot of confidence and high expectations going in with kind of a sour taste in our mouth from the year before, losing in the second round. We felt like we could have done better their junior year as well.
Yeah, from a player's perspective, there was definitely a lot of disappointment in that year before. We definitely had the talent to progress a lot farther than we did. We took a bad beating in the conference tournament, and then a bad loss in the state playoffs as well, due to we had a bunch of off-the-court issues that could have been handled that weren't. And so we felt like, from a player's perspective, mentally, if we were, in our case, if we were all in, that we could go as far as we wanted to go. And once, especially, kind of going in, we knew that Mount Airy was going to be tough. They were going to be the toughest one in the conference. And then Prep was going to be tough, even though they weren't in the conference at the time. But there was a lot of other schools. Thomasville was up there at the time. Cherryville, who we ended up playing, was really good at the time. But we knew with the guys that we had, we could make a pretty deep run.
Was there a point during the season where y'all were kind of like, hey, we can do this, or was that pretty much the mentality the whole way?
I think it goes back to the summer before, when we went to team camp and we played another state title favorite, Winston-Salem Prep, who was the defending state champs that year. We beat them twice at team camp. We beat them for the team camp championship for our final game in June. So once we saw that we could do that, we just beat the defending state champs. We had a real sense of, we can really do this, and we're good enough. And that gave us a lot of confidence going into the season.
Were there any differences in kind of the culture and seeing guys in practice, were you working harder and stuff like that? Is that one of the main differences from?
The team was definitely hungrier, more focused. They were more physically mature than the year before, and the big thing is, like Coach Herschel said, is that they were more mentally mature and more focused on our task at hand. Was we had a championship vision for that year, and everybody was bought into that, and that never changed from the 1st of November to the middle of March when we won the state championship.
So now I wanted to ask you all about 2 losses you had that season. So you lost to Grimsley and Mount Airy, correct? So talk about how those kind of lit a fire under you guys, or motivated you guys to go on that run.
The Grimsley game was a big game for us. We played it on December the 14th, 2008. I'll never forget it, because that was a game that we were all looking forward to, because Grimsley was one of the top teams in the area at the time, and we felt like we were one of the top teams in the area. And some of our guys had grown up playing with some of their guys. So it was a game we had been looking forward to because we felt like if we won that game, we kind of made a statement about ourselves around Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem area. And we came out in that game, we came out flat. We played really poorly in the first half. We didn't play as well as we could have. And we got to a big deficit early on. And in the second half, we came back and we had a shot to take the lead with about 5 minutes to go, and we missed the shot, and we never recovered after that. But it kind of brought us back down because we were on about we were off to about a 7-0 start, somewhere around there, and it brought us back to reality, just saying that, reminding us of what we had to do. And after that, we're proud to say we went on a 19-game winning streak and didn't lose again until Mount Airy in the conference tournament championship. And then with the Mount Airy game, which is always a big rivalry for us, and we had beaten them twice during the regular season. They beat us at their place for the conference tournament championship, and that loss, I think, springboarded us to the state championship because, as we said, when we lost to Grimsley, we forgot about some of the little things you have to do to win. And the Mount Airy game, we were probably riding a little too high going into that game because we had went undefeated in our conference. And that loss really refocused us and brought us back down to earth and got us ready for that state championship run over the next 6 games.
Yeah, I'd say it's a case of inspiration in 2 different ways. So the Grimsley loss, we wanted that game, but at the same time, we didn't know exactly where we were at. 7-0 at the time, but you're playing a big 4A school at the time. They had 2 really legit kids, and then, as a normal 4A school does, they got a bunch of athletes around them. I'll never forget the Zach diving out of bounds, throwing it behind his back to Aaron. That was kind of one of those moments that stick out in my head. It was like, okay, we knew we could do it. We played terribly in the first half, but it was one of those all right, we know we could do that. We know we could play with anybody. Got to the Mount Airy game. He's probably right. We were probably coming in a little too high. It was, one of the more electric atmospheres I remember playing in. Obviously, they got us at home for a conference championship, which was unfortunate, but, I still remember, being in the locker room and the roof, the ceiling, bouncing, you could, that kind of environment. But that one, I've never been more mad in my entire life. In terms of, sports mad, you know what I mean? You never want to lose, especially not to a rival. But from then on out, it was all right, we're about to terrorize whoever comes in and whoever we have to play next, especially knowing that we were going to get home court advantage through the front half of the playoffs. So it was just one of those, bring it on after that.
I think that's a good segue into my next question. So talk about the first few rounds of the playoffs and how home court advantage was a big deal since y'all had a really good regular season. And talk about when things really started getting tough and which games really stood out and were really competitive before actually getting to the state championship.
First round, being at home, we were the #1 seed, and we played a team that was not as talented as us, so we had a pretty big win the first game. The second game, we hosted Thomasville, who at the time was coming off a run of about 4 of the last 7 state championships. They were at the end of their run, and we beat them. We beat them by double digits, which was a convincing win for us, and even though the game was a little close throughout, but we pulled away. We felt like we were the better team. And the third round set up the rematch with Winston-Salem Prep. And to this day, that game has been the most people that have ever been in the Bishop Gym watching the game. There were people, the stands were full. There were people sitting on the stage. The fire marshal wouldn't let anybody else in the building. It was so crowded. And that game was nip and tuck the whole way. But our 2 guards, Aaron Toomey and Ross Tachinko, they played really well down the stretch, and they made plays down the stretch that sealed that game for us. But they did a lot of the scoring, but the rest of the team, it was just, we had 15 guys on that team, and 15 guys helped us win that game and pulled us through with rebounds and just playing hard and the spirit, and just those guys believed in each other like the 17-18 team did. Those guys played for each other every day, and I think that our culture and the team unity kind of pulled us through a tough game. And Coach can probably speak to what he saw from a player's perspective.
Yeah, the first game, I'll put it how, we beat up on that team so bad that I played a lot. Like, that's how bad we beat up on that team. But no, Thomasville, we came in, and that was another one that was kind of an eye-opener for us. We knew that they were coming off of a big run of being really, really good. They had a guy from a couple years before who would actually put Aaron Toomey in the newspaper dunking on him. So it was like we knew those guys a little bit. We wanted to beat up on those guys, so that was a real fun victory for us. And then Prep came in, and that was unlike any game I've ever played. The atmosphere here, pregame, I still remember. He probably remembers too. They had guys that weren't even playing in the game talking trash pregame out in the hallway. That's just like, it was that kind of a game from the start. And it was wild. It was, I guess it was WXII. It was game of the week. So cameras everywhere, which we had never really had that kind of level of the media being around there before. And that's kind of one of the things, after the final buzzer went off, everybody mobs the floor. You feel like you're in a college atmosphere. The guys are coming with the cameras, pointing down into the mosh pit or whatever, and then we funneled out right afterwards. Coach Dre came into the locker room and actually talked to us afterwards, that's the only time I've ever had that happen in my career as well. Having the opposing team's coach come into the locker room and wish us the best, basically give a rite of passage, saying, "Hey, now it's y'all's turn." He's like, "We're rooting for y'all now. Go out there and win it." So that was pretty cool. It was one of those things that's always stuck with me. And then, getting on the bus, going and doing the news with the girls team, who was obviously really good at the time too. They were in the midst of their fourth state title. So getting to do that with them, being there on the news till who knows what time in the morning or whatever, and it was a wild experience. And then it took another turn once we started playing at UNCG. So.
Yes, to talk about playing at UNCG, that was at the regional semis and finals.
Yeah, it was the regional semis was on Friday night, and the regional finals was on Saturday afternoon. So we had a 6 o'clock game on Friday night against Hendersonville, and it was a tough game. They were a very athletic team. They had some good guards, but in the end, our guards and our big guys, we were the better team than they, and we pulled away. Got out to a big lead, and they made a little comeback at the end, but it was we won 8 or 10 points. And then the next day, we had to turn around and go back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and play Cherryville, who had a young man who had signed to play at Florida State. They had another guy who went on to play at UNC Asheville, and then another Division II player. So they were super talented, and they were very good. And looking back, that was probably either that game or the Prep game. That was the state championship game, because it was nip and tuck the whole way. We got out to a lead, they came back, they took a lead, we came back, tied it up. And just down the stretch again, our guards really pulled us across the finish line in that game, making plays down the stretch. And it came down to the game was tied. They hit a shot to tie the game up with just over 2 seconds left. And our point guard got fouled at half court, and he went down for a two shots foul with about 2 seconds to go. He made the first one, missed the second one. So they got the rebound and make an outlet pass. And in my head, and probably some of the guys' head, we're thinking about a game that the same situation happened to us early in November, the second game of the year. And we were up by 3, and a guy shot it almost from the same spot the Cherryville guy shot it from, and he banked in the 3 to force overtime. We won in overtime. So our minds are flashing back to that. So they go down, shoot the ball, and the ball just, kind of like you see in the movies, it just floated up there. It seemed like it stayed in the air forever. But then it hit off the rim, and it was just celebration time for us, because we knew we were going to the state championship game after a hard-fought battle. And that's the euphoria you feel is like it. You can't match that.
And just to harp on that game, the Hendersonville game was a great game. That's not one that even really sticks out in my mind so much. It was all that Cherryville game for me. And so another thing that was going on, it was their point guard, and he was the one who went and played at Asheville, right? Mm-hmm. His father unexpectedly passed away out of nowhere. Terry, can't remember exactly what the situation was. And so their fan base was like totally and completely inspired. Like that, the fact that the kid was even playing was a feat in and of itself. And so he was known for like, he always had a towel on him at all times. So like everybody in their fan base all had these, they called them something towels, and everybody was waving them. And that's all I remember, seeing a sea of blue like on the other side, everybody waving these towels. And the kid had a great game. The kid who was going to Florida State had a great game. And the kid who took the shot at the end had knocked down some big-time shots in that game already. And, I think maybe if you ask Aaron, who missed the free throw to this day, I still think he might say that he missed it on purpose. I don't know. But he came down, missed that shot, and it's kind of – and when he said celebration time, like, all I remember being is I was so far onto the floor before I can even like remember like, anything real happening, like any time passing. Like I was like flying out there. And there's a great picture of him specifically, but like everybody's running on the floor and he's like just kind of like looking back like this. It's like it was that sense of joy, sense of like elation, sense of like, I mean, I think we kind of felt like that was the state title almost at that point. And then that led into a really fun week, I guess it was about a week, going into state title prep. So.
Gotcha. So after that win, when you knew you were going to play in the state championship, what was that week like, from a practice standpoint, and then traveling up to the state, correct? Right. So that week leading up, and the bus ride up there the night before you actually played the game. What was that like?
Well, the worst part of the week was waiting around another week to play the game, and we had to practice every day, and I'm just, nobody get hurt. Please, nobody get hurt. And the very first practice, in the first 10 minutes, we had one of our players get hurt. He was just trying to catch a pass on a 3-man weave, a full court drill, and he broke his thumb, or broke a bone. So that was not a good start to the week for a state championship week. But just the waiting around and the being anxious about playing the game, and you think, oh, did we get all the way here? Are we going to lose? And just that fear and just wanting to win so bad. So the waiting around was the worst part. But we were excited. We were confident. We felt like we could win, and we had film of the other team. We had a lot of confidence going in. But it was, like he said about earlier, there were cameras in the gym. There were interviews every day. And my big thing, after talking to Coach Robinson, as they had been through this before, his advice was just try to keep your team as focused as you can on the 94-by-50 court, whatever's going on in the court, and don't let all the outside stuff be a distraction. That's all well and good, but what really matters is what you're doing on the court, getting ready for the game. So he was a real help to me during that week about how to handle all the extracurricular stuff that was going on. But it was a celebration. That week is kind of a blur, and really the state championship game is a blur. The details that I really remember are the Cherryville game, because looking back, it was the one that we had to get past.
Mm-hmm. You describe like the as a player, like you're like going to school every day, like the whole week going up to the state championships. Like you just describe just like the atmosphere in the hallways. Just
yeah, it was wild. Like I really don't know how to like put it into words. I think what kind of helped, so the girls being so good, they started their run, like their main group came in. They had obviously really good players in front of them too, but the main group that won the first 4 were in my class. So, and there was 4 of them, and so kind of being able to see them and see how the girls have carried themselves, I think that helped a little bit. We were a senior-laden group, and we had 6 guys that were seniors, and then some of our other horses were juniors, and so we were all pretty, for whatever we had that little bit of seniority to us, but I think that helped us stay a little bit focused. But I wouldn't even say it was really that difficult to stay focused. After winning that Cherryville game, sure, we felt like that sense of elation, that sense of celebration, but there was nothing at that point that was going to stop us from winning that game. Like, we had a little bit, at least I remember personally, like a little bit of the fear of the unknown. just not playing really any teams from the East. So we didn't really know what to expect. But when we got the film on them, we kind of felt comfortable. We felt, I remember feeling especially comfortable with our height advantage. They had some big, wide guards that were just strong kids, but they didn't have our horses down low like we did, and so I remember feeling pretty good about that. I don't remember doing like any schoolwork that week. Like I know I did, like I know I had to, but like
Edit that part out.
it's like okay. I didn't really want my senior year. But it's just like that's like all I remember thinking about, and like going into the practices, like I actually remember those being some of the, because I mean, I'm sure you were just freaking out about injuries and stuff, so they were real relaxed. And you're at that point of the season where you're trying to rest guys' legs and everything too. But I remember, just there's a couple of little instances here and there, just of like super hilarious things happening. Just I think everybody was loose. It wasn't to the point where we were distracted, but it was to the point where we were enjoying it and kind of embracing, like you said, the cameras being there every day, and random interviews going on every day, and extracurricular stuff that you don't normally get. So it was a wild week. I think we had and we haven't really talked about this too, but like the fan base was awesome. Like we had the pit was incredible, especially that year, but they had a couple years there where we had I think I've told you guys about this. We had like a guy who dressed up as a gorilla, banana, taco, green man suit guys, and they would travel to every game, and like they brought so much energy, and like the school itself, like all the teachers and administration were all like, everybody was just crazy hyped up that whole week. It was pretty nuts.
You asked about the bus route there. There was a pep rally on the Friday before the state championship for the girls and boys team, so we did that, and then we actually went down the night before and spent the night in Raleigh. After we left here, after the pep rally, we went to practice at Guilford College to get used to playing on the college court, and from there we went and stayed overnight in Raleigh near NC State, and the parents took us all out to a nice dinner. And we were able to get everybody, had a team meeting Friday night, spent the night in the hotel, got up, had breakfast together. So our parents really took care of us that night before. So that was a great memory we have of that time too.
Right. So you have all of that leading up the whole season, everything leading up to this one game. So now you talk about the game and the impact that on you as a coach and you as a player, and for the Bishop program.
Yep. The state championship is something that you dream about your whole life as a player and a coach. And as a player, I was close to one as a player, but we didn't achieve it. And it was just something that I'd always dreamed about. When my sister was in high school, she was a cheerleader, and their team won the state championship in basketball. She was a cheerleader, so I got to experience that as a kid, seeing them do that. So that was always a goal that I wanted to accomplish. And when we got there, I just remember sitting on the bench during warm-ups and telling my assistant coach, just look around you and soak it all in. And I'm so glad that I was able to do that for myself too, just because it's so rare that you may ever get there, whether you win it or not. Just getting there is such a dream come true. And so I remember that moment sitting on the bench before the game, and then once we got into the game, it was nip and tuck the whole first half, and we weren't playing great. I don't know how they were playing compared to how they normally play, but we didn't play great, but we played good enough. It was a 2-point game, 1-point game at halftime. And then one of the things that we had been stressing the whole summer before and the whole season was our defense. And I always say that your habits come back to get you in the playoffs, whether they be good or bad. And the stat that I'm most proud of in that game and that I will never forget is we held Weldon without a field goal for the first 10 minutes of the second half. And so that goes into the fourth quarter where they've not had a field goal since halftime started. So as the fourth quarter got to about the 6-minute mark, 5-minute mark, the game was well in hand. We were in full control, and nothing was going to change. When we had a double-digit lead with the team we had, we weren't going to lose.
So from a player's perspective, going into the state title game, like all I remember is, and this was just me, I had a different role on the team at the time. I was a team captain, but that necessarily wasn't like I wasn't going out there and scoring every night. Like that wasn't my role. And so all I remember is like you got some weird stuff pregame, like you have to go out, like felt like an hour before the game, you got to take a team picture out in front of the thing, then you go back in the locker room, you're waiting around, it's weird, kind of before the game. It feels like it takes forever, but I remember being laser focused, and I think everybody was, in terms of being absolutely focused. Probably there was no better time for us. For me, that was making sure that everybody was ready. Making sure that our top guys were ready. We had some role players, like we had a couple of young role players. We had twins that were freshmen who came in. They came in for the playoffs and were contributing a lot. They were getting big minutes, and one of them ended up hitting big shots in that game. And so, especially making sure those guys were ready. In terms of our big guy, Aaron Toomey, Rostachenko, like two of the better players to ever play here. Those two guys you didn't have to worry about as much, but it's kind of making sure everybody else was ready and whatever they needed to do to get ready, to stay focused. So I remember doing that a lot. Once the game got started, I don't think I've ever been, and I think that kind of contributed to the little bit of a slow start we have. We were tight. There was no doubt about it. We were late, we were focused, we were ready, we knew what to do, but we just came out a little tight and had to get a feel, get our bearings right. And so that first half, I remember being pretty stressed out, pretty nervous, I guess is the only word. Not nervous about losing, just nervous about not performing the way that we were going to perform. I don't think I ever really lost confidence in whether or not we were going to win or lose. It was just like, we need to do this and we need to go out there and prove it to everybody. We didn't want to come out there and win by 1 point and just be like, we won a title. It was like, we wanted to scrape these dudes and then prove how good of a team we were. And it did not take long in the second half. I don't remember the time that they went without a field goal, but we got to a point where everybody just was like, all right, here we go, we're good. And I don't know when that was, but with Aaron too, being as good as he was, and then he's still in the record books. I think it was 32 free throw attempts, and he made how many free throw attempts was it? Something ridiculous.
He scored 35 points, 21 free throws.
So 23 attempts. Yeah, not 30. 23 attempts and 21 free throws, and so he was controlling the game. He was at the line all the time, just basically every time taking 2 points. They'd come down, take a ridiculous shot. And you could feel, as much as we felt confident, they lost all confidence. Pretty soon into the third quarter, it felt like the Tides just completely, they got nervous. They started jacking, and there was definitely, all along the bench and you could tell it on the floor because everybody just started scoring at that point. It just became a field day at that point. But everybody on the bench was just like, all right, here we go. This is it. Then I don't even know. Did you talk about after the game yet? That's
what I was gonna ask about. Do you remember the moment when the buzzer sounded, or was there a specific moment where it hit you, and everyone was kind of like, we did it?
Well, the last 2.5 minutes of the game, it seemed like the clock didn't move because we had a double-digit lead, and we're just trying to get there. Let's get the buzzer sound. When the buzzer sounded and it ended, everybody was hugging, high-fiving, and it was just a celebration to be able to celebrate there on our court with the girls' team was there and the pit was there and all the fans were there because both games were back-to-back. It was an amazing time, and then you get the medals put around your neck and your name is called. You get to walk out there, and it's just those are some of the best memories of the whole run. And I've got pictures in my house of the celebration just on the court. And that is, it's over. You've reached the mountaintop, and you can't replicate that. And we're fortunate that we've got it on video, that we can relive it a little bit.
Yeah, for me, I remember running off, like I was on the floor when the buzzer went off and just like leaping into the team. Like, I just jumped as high as I could, and I was like, I'm gonna either like jump on top of somebody. It was just like everybody was going crazy. It was we were on the end of the court closest to the pit, so they took a section underneath the basket that was close to us, and we had our kind of like our JV staff behind us and some other like administration people behind us. So like, remember like everybody was hugging them, and then it was either right before or right after they actually gave us the medals. Everybody went over to the pit, and the pit would just crawl down, and that became a huge thing. And I just remember just like making sure like to give everyone the biggest hug, like as they like everybody goes down and you get your medal and everybody walks past you. I remember wanting that, and then I remember like the locker room. So him and I guess Ross and Aaron had interviews. They had to go do the press conference and everything, and we all went crazy in the locker room, and then it was like everybody kind of sat there for a second. It was just like we got a little bit of early reflection time before they came in. It was just like we just did that. Like this is actually happening. And then somebody came in and gave us all water bottles. So when they got in there, we just tore that locker room up pretty bad. And then we all did that, and we all came out as a team, and we had everybody's parents were waiting for us. All of our parents were waiting for us in the lobby, and I remember that kind of being really emotional. Like, I've never seen more moms crying over something, like over happy stuff, And I don't know if you've been around your parents too much when it's a happy crying, but it's kind of like I just remember just sobbing, like, and it was, I wasn't even ready for that, and you're just like looking around, and all, other guys are crying too, and it's just like kind of one of those wild moments. But it was a blast. That bus ride back was pretty fun too. I remember that. When I go into an interview, I'd wear that ring, and whether or not it actually helped or not, I certainly would blast it everywhere, state champion, this, and would be able to talk about that experience. And then as far as the program itself, it's, how many teams are in the 1A at any given time? I mean, there's tons of them, right? And the opportunity to actually get that title, once is, statistically not easy. So even being the best team in the world, occasionally you don't win it all, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to have that luck on your side, being able to make that run, and be able to tell kids going forward that, we did it here once, we know how to do it. I'm still following him. He definitely knows the path. So, hopefully we can go get another one. And, I guess that's the end goal always, is to get that next one.